Hello, welcome back here. This is day 2 of the Global Vision Quest. We are diving into conversation today, hearing from amazing people around the world, their stories, their journey, discovering their iconic essence, claiming the power of their iconic essence. And now in our panel discussion today, we're going to be talking about the iconic essence in action. And this is such a unique even just thing to think about, right? How do we put our uniqueness into action in the world? How do we live it? How do we express it? How do we embody it? How do we create a life, a career? How do we design our schedule? How do we have relationships when we're being ourselves? How do we fit into this world and the society when our uniqueness doesn't always reflect in the outer world? And how do we find a place for ourselves? And so this is a topic that I think anyone who is on the path of being yourself, wanting to thrive being yourself, being someone who contributes your medicine and your gifts and your talents in the world, something that will come up is, how do you do that? How do you put that into action? So joining me here today are a group of amazing people. I'm going to be inviting them on one by one so you can, see them, connect the face with the name, and then we'll be a panel and we'll go into conversation. And just to let you know that with everyone who's going to be in this group, we have interviews with each person as well, so you can get to know all of them. And so in the description or the pinned post, wherever you're watching this, and if you're on the website, there's photos of each person below. You can click on that to learn about each of the guests that are speaking today. And it's amazing. So there's it's very rich. You can really get into everybody's journey. And I invite you to do that. And of course, have your journal handy if you were able to print it off. I love doing this because I like to keep notes of what's going on. And I had a bunch of notes already from the first panel, and it just kind of giving yourself a space to receive the insights, put it into your own words so it has relevance for your life. You can do that in the journal or your own notes, wherever you have that. All right, well, let's get started. I want to welcome on Christina Morassi. So Christina, we've been on this journey together for a long time, and you've gone through many stages and evolutions. I remember when we first connected, it was the Heart Shot photographer, right? It's going way back. And yep. And so just to get us started, just as a bit of like a welcome, where do you feel you are right now in your journey with your iconic essence?
Ooh, I would say reader would be the word, because I created a lot of success really fast as a photographer, and then as, like I say, a fancy pants business coach. But then I pulled the plug on that business 10 years ago, and I feel like I've been dismantled every which way from Sunday since then, and really looking for, like, how do I do business from a soul aligned place? And so it's been an interesting, wild journey to unplug from the cultural norm and to figure out, like, my iconic essence, how does she do it? And so that's the process I'm in. I've been in it this whole time, but there's like a resurgence, I think, that's happening. So I love getting to participate in this this incredible project that you've invited us to, because we all get to take our iconic essence to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and and it is one of the things that happens once we activate our energy, our iconic essence. And often there's like a death, there's a birth, there's layers, there's shedding, there's this invigoration, a coming down. There's so many things. I can't wait to get into it. So Thank you for opening up with that. That's a really key thing that we're going to go into today. Awesome. Thank you.
Great to be here.
All right. I'd like to welcome on Cora Flora. Hey, Cora. So, for those who remember going back to New Icon and Soul Art Day and stuff, it's Cora singing in a lot of the music that we have in Soul Art Studio. So I'm so happy to have your voice in here today. Anything you want to share about where you feel you are at in your iconic essence journey with your music, your shamanic work? Just where do you feel you're at right now?
Yeah, I feel like right now I'm in a place of creative crystallization. I feel like when I was initially doing the New Icon and the Soul Art Day, I was still really young and figuring out who I was and like what I wanted to share with the world. And in the recent years, I've had the opportunity to deepen into my songwriting and my healing journey, and yeah, shamanically. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been humbling. It's been deep. And now I feel like I'm at this place where I've done so much internal work that I have the music. I have these albums, I have a songbook, I have courses, I have so many offerings, a podcast. And I'm really excited to be a part of this iconic essence because I feel like part of the medicine that you give me, Laura, is, well, I feel so seen and supported, and um, and also you've given me the and like express it. So now I feel like expression that's embracing the extra, embracing the big, bold. Excited to be here.
Thank you. And just as we're bringing on the other guests too, just Cora, have a check at where your mic is. It might be under something. I'm not sure because a little bit of it cut out there. But I love on your hat it says love. So just check the audio and see if there's a mic hiding under anything. All right. I'd like to welcome on Jenna LaFlame. Hey, Jenna.
Hi, Laura. Great to be
Hey.
here. Hi, everyone.
So happy that you're here. So Jenna, you're a new mom. You're a new mom. Just to get us warmed up, I hope we get the chance to go into this more, but how has being a mom been part of your own iconic essence journey evolution?
Well, I delayed being a mom until my 40s because I was terrified of compromising my iconic essence or losing it. And I think that's a widespread fear that's indoctrinated into women. You're going to lose something through motherhood. And often our mothers do complain, and mine certainly did, that she did lose out by being a mother. So my journey has been flipping the script on that. And how can motherhood be an artistic expression every single day? My iconic essence is erotic innocence, and kids definitely reflect back the innocence and have the power to take us more deeply into that zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope we get the chance more to hear how your own iconic essence of erotic innocence has really unfolded. But it's interesting what you shared about really the beliefs around motherhood. And I think that's something that we all have to deal with in terms of just the beliefs that are outside. And when we want to live our life may not match what those beliefs are. And we have to find our way navigating to create our own path. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And becoming a mom in your 40s is amazing.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome on Corianka Cornejo. Hey, Corianka. Hello.
Hello, Laura. Hi, everyone.
Hey. So where do you feel you are at right now with your own iconic essence journey?
It's been a very long journey, it seems. So many years doing the healing work. It all started with my own dark night of the soul, and the healing propelled me to reconnect and remember my Incan lineage and the spiritual lineage of the priestess and the medicine woman. And so I have been doing the healing work for many years with earth-based medicine ceremony, mostly working with women, which has been always my calling to work with sisters. And then years later, a new assignment came for me, and that is to initiate medicine women, the rising medicine women of the earth. And that's what I am doing now. So the healing is still there, very much there. However, that is now primarily something that I do with rising medicine women, and then also initiating them on the path of the medicine woman, which is just so beautiful. I live in ceremony, and that is also my life mission.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here. All right, I'd like to also welcome on Sierra Sullivan. Hey, Sierra. Now, you're also someone who has gone through like layers of the ways in which your iconic essence is expressed. And I'm curious to hear in your words, where do you feel you are now with your iconic essence journey?
Oh, yeah. It's funny because when I was first doing the new icon with you, I was on the precipice or just past my 40th birthday. And now I'm on the precipice of my 50th birthday. It's like, oh my gosh, 10 years. And I thought that claiming my iconic essence would lock in a level of success at the time. But what it did was it peeled away anything that wasn't true. It peeled away what was not serving and who I needed to be, which, funny enough, being the yellow and the gold, it was all about shining my inner light, just being the light versus this seeking to be the light versus be in the light, right? I was on this like, how do I be in the light as a path to business success? But really it was about who I be as light. And so fortunately and unfortunately, the evolution that took place around that was it did clear out, much like what Christina said, it cleared out a lot of stuff that was no longer in alignment with me. And it brought my work with women into a deeper element, which is, from just the whole woman to pussyology and the pussy itself. But then it actually activated work with my husband that I know we had wanted to align on that we couldn't see. And it helped me be more true to my relationship, which then now we have a thriving business together for awesome visionary couples. So it knocked me off my pedestal in the best way possible, I think, and put me in a grounded, true place.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's, so interesting. And yeah, and you mentioned the thing of like 10 years, right? Like, it's so interesting to think for those who have been in this journey for a while, if you're watching, if you're like, well, what is this iconic essence thing? And, this is something that this concept, and this journey, we started it with the new icon work like over 10 years ago. And it kind of lay low for a while in a bit of a cocoon. And so it is fascinating to hear what happens once you activate that. It does set a journey in motion. It's like iconic essence in action. And that motion can have a shedding and a stripping and like a death and kind of like taking away the things that are not in alignment or not the path of what your soul wants. We might think, oh, I want this, or I want this money, or I want this acknowledgement, or this kind of success, but it may not be what your iconic essence wants. And I loved what you said, Sierra, like this idea, like be the light versus like to try to be in the light, right? Yeah. It's like that. I actually had to write that down when you were saying that, because that is the shift really to claim your own power rather than thinking that something outside of you is giving you power, but you have your own power. I think that's so powerful. All right. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks.
And I'd like to invite on our final guest in the panelists group here is Sophia Tom. Hey, Sophia. Welcome.
Hello.
So I'd love to hear for you, where do you feel you are in your iconic essence journey at this time? You've gone through so many growth spurts and illuminations and realizations. Where do you feel you are now?
Yeah, wow. It's such a poignant moment right now because I'm literally in a rebirth. So much of what other sisters are saying here, I feel like when we really are deeply embodying and listening and being guided by our iconic essence, it is not a linear path, especially as women. It is a spiral path. And so, yeah, after going, really it was through the journey of discovering my iconic essence as the temple body priestess and going deep into my womb, that my womb has really been guiding me. And so I, through your support, Laura, I birthed Temple Body Arts and my full mystery school, and, was leading that for 7 years. And then my womb brought me back into stillness again in order to, I feel like, go back in and really realign at this time of perimenopause and this ultimate rite of passage that we move through. We have like becoming a mother here, and now there's also like, reaching 50 is like this ultimate rite of passage that women move through. And my womb has been guiding me into understanding what that means, and that Temple Body Arts and this whole mystery school that I birthed from my iconic essence actually is the perfect training ground for women and for myself. And so I'm literally getting ready to rebirth my entire mystery school after being on sabbatical for 2 years. And I actually chose the photo that I did with you and Kevin with the snake, because I went back for more after doing the new Icon movie, and yeah, did these incredible photo shoots accessing these parts of myself. And the one with the snakes that I chose for my profile here was such an initiation, actually, that I called in for myself. And I feel like that is the work that I'm here to do, is the deep rites of passage and that initiatory space. And so the snake representing the ultimate feminine of shedding her skin, you know, and really when we are listening to Iconic Essence, as I said, it's the shedding actually that is part of that birth and that growth, because as women in these cyclical wisdom, you know, cycles, it's like that is constantly moving, and so it is not a linear path.
Yeah, and having the death cycle, right? I think like there's this death portal that we I feel get the chance to go through while we're still alive in terms of in physical form, but there is a death to go through to then have a rebirth of the next kind of incarnation of the expression. Something that I'm hearing coming up is this idea of, you know, we go on our journey, and our journey takes us through the spiral. It takes us like maybe in the gutter, and then like maybe up on the pedestal for a while. And, you know, it takes us in all these places. And then there's a point where we kind of gather a certain type of medicine. And then there's the sharing of that, right? Like it's like Iconic Essence in action is like, there's the aspect of how do we live it for ourselves, but there is this point where it starts to spill over. And Koryanka, you had mentioned how you are now actually working and initiating people on the medicine path. And I would love for you to speak about, in your own journey, how did you prepare yourself to feel like it was at the point of like you filled up? You're always going to be unfolding and evolving, but you filled up to the point that you were ready to then initiate, guide, and support other people who are then going on the journey of discovering themselves. How did that shift happen from filling up first for yourself to then now initiating other people?
Yes, well, at the beginning, there was a lot of ceremonial healing with traditional medicine of Peru. In Cusco, where I live now, I went through so many experiences of healing, two kinds of initiations. One is the life initiation, which is the dark night of the soul, and how we integrate that into our lives, how we go through the healing and the purging and many processes that happen for us to transmute that into the light within. And the other kind of initiation I received were ceremonial initiations, which people might think about them in different ways, but I am talking about ceremonial initiations in the most traditional way, which is going in ceremony to ask, first of all, permission from the divine and the spirit guides to work with them, asking for them to also come through and allow me to channel their energy. And it's really a shaking of hands with the divine and the spirit guides to start supporting people in their own journeys of healing and reconnection with them and the divine. So I went through that, and it kind of came naturally, this knowing and understanding that it was time. So what people call feeling the calling, right? I felt the calling. It's the time to start supporting people. And at the very beginning, I didn't offer any kind of services. The very first time I served anyone is when I just said to a group of women, I just have this vision. I have this excitement about taking people to Peru for ceremonial immersions so that they get to heal with the medicine that also was my medicine and healed me. And then people said, I want to come with you. To my surprise. So I had no plan, no schedule, nothing. I didn't have any idea how this was going to happen. So I said to them, give me some time. I need time to figure it out and I'll get back to you. So I created the plan and I showed it to them. And then that was the very first time I offered a ceremonial immersion in person. And from there, everything evolved. And the spirit guides were the ones creating the opportunities and bringing the clients and showing me the how, what to do, and creating collaborations in the ethers like this one to come together and be able to share their messages and their energy with the people in whichever way is meant to be for the highest good. of everyone for the light to shine through. So that was the process basically, and it continues being that way.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think that there's so many things in there that you shared that I think are like teaching opportunities. One being that when you get a calling for something, then it doesn't mean you know how to do it. But the energy of that calling, that excitement, that inspiration, it made you want to speak about it and share with, I was like, I have this vision. I want to do this. And people are like, hey, I want to go be in that energy with you. I want to do that. And so structures start to emerge. The how starts to emerge when you go and you put that iconic essence in action. So I noticed you shared that. And I think that that's such a good teaching, because often when we have something unique, we have something that comes from inside of us, we don't know how to do it in terms of put it into the world. There isn't an exact structure. There isn't a template for a person's uniqueness. And so people often feel like, gosh, well, how am I going to do this? And so Koryanka, you just gave a great example. It's like, well, you heard the calling, you spoke about it with your inspiration, and then it started to put things in motion, and you kind of figured out the details because now you had details to figure out, right? So yeah, very inspiring. Something else too, this idea of the dark night of the soul. And I think that it is very common that when we are called to become something, we do have to shed, and in some cases, like have a death type of experience to release what is not in alignment to or in service to who we're becoming. And so there's like a death process that I've experienced. I think everyone I've talked to probably has experienced it. I'm thinking of it now. And I want to bring in Christina. I'd love to weave you in here. I know you do work with the death cycle and grief. Anything you'd like to say about this topic of the process of putting the iconic essence in action and having to face that death experience, the dark night of the soul? You know, like there's usually something tough we have to go through, alchemize to become who we are here to be. What could you say on that topic?
Well, I'm so glad you called on me because I love this topic, and I've really been hearing how death is woven into so many of our stories, because I'm in the process of launching this program on what I'm calling death power. And it's been a long, interesting journey to getting here. And so what I've really learned, like I taught about the dark feminine 4 years ago. And what I've learned is that so much of our power is actually in the dark. And I know we love the light. I know that is so wonderful. But at the same time, for us to be whole and be able to have like the full spectrum of our being, we have to go into the dark to get that. And so what I believe is that we can go do that process consciously. Like we can decide to die. We can decide to go into the dark. Or we can let life kind of force our hand in that way. And that's where we might kind of get a smackdown from the universe, where something happens in our life and we are taken into that dark night of the soul. And both of them are great. I mean, we all have done both probably. And so I think it's just really important that we learn how to work with our darkness and our shadow and like the cycles of death and rebirth, because this is how like nature works. Like we can take such teachings and learn from nature in this way. And so I just want to hold that space for all of us, that it's okay to die. It's okay to be in the dark night of the soul. And in fact, what if we welcomed it? What if we actually learned to even enjoy it a little bit and like learned how to work with it so it wasn't so terrifying? Did I freeze there a little bit? Okay. Anyway, so I just am passionate about that. So to step into our iconic essence, often we need to step outside of our conditioning and all the things that we were taught by society that kind of trained us out of like our, magnificence, if you will. And so death to me is like the first step we need to go through to step into our iconic essence. We have to die to all of that outside information so we can find that essence within. And then once we get connected here, we start to understand how to move forward in a whole different way. So for me, it's a very integral into our iconic essence and motion.
Thank you. Yeah. The idea, wouldn't it be incredible if there was like a space within society? I mean, a space for it to happen because when it happens, it's like, don't really, it's not like your most productive outward time, right? It's like, and so, there's so many structural thoughts on that in society. So thank you for sharing that, Christina. It's amazing. I'd like to bring in Jenna into this piece, because it sounds like from what you shared before, you had to kind of go through a death of belief systems around being a mother to allow that experience to come into your life. And I'm curious if there's anything you'd like to say about what enabled you to kind of, because that I do feel with erotic innocence as your iconic essence, being a mother and having that, like, the birthing experience, all these things, I see how it's all interconnected and going into another levels of pleasure and all kinds of stuff. What did you have to go through, or what had to die in order to have that birth?
I really had to surrender to my own teachings. So erotic innocence is about listening to the body, the curiosity of the body through the senses, and turning down the volume of the mind that chimes in with conditioning and beliefs, shame and guilt, things we've learned that basically contradict our body's sense of like, oh, I like it. This is great. I want to explore. I'm curious. So I was teaching this, and I was feeling my body, my womb, my ovaries saying, I want to be a mother. I want to have a baby. And my mind was like completely disregarding my teachings. My main teaching was listen to your body. And I did the absolute opposite for quite a long time, and was so up in the mind of, oh, well, how's it going to affect my career? And actually, I relate to what you were saying about being the light versus in the light. The mind was like, in the light, how to get in the light? Babies, that's not compatible. It's going to take away. I remember thinking like, oh, I want to go to dance class. I don't want to be taking my kids to dance class. And ironically, recently I thought, oh, I wonder at what age the local ballet school takes kids. And I looked it up, and it's 3. And then I saw, oh, they have an adult class. So I actually started ballet, which I did as a kid, inspired by my child. So I had so many black or white beliefs, and basically listening to my mind drove me into that dark night of the soul, drove me to misery, where I really had an epiphany, a huge wake up that what I'd been teaching all along was the way and the truth, and to finally listen to that. So at that point in my 40s, having a baby was not so straightforward. I didn't just conceive, and it took quite some medical technology and expense to become pregnant and have a baby, and so worth it. But I definitely feel part of my message going forth is to encourage younger women to truly listen to the womb, as Sophia says, listen to the animal, and give it that dignity that the mind is not the one in control, in charge with all the answers. And if you feel the call of motherhood, take the risk, take the plunge. It certainly has made me feel so much more powerful. And I hear that from other women too, like the reserves that you need when you're taken to your edge and sleep deprivation and giving, and you just find this whole other reservoir to give from and create from. I feel more intelligent now. I feel like my brain works better. And people used to say, oh, pregnancy brain, mother brain, and you become stupid. But I have found it to be the complete opposite.
Thank you. Yeah, and it sounds like they're, led you to misery. You had to take in your own teachings, first of all, because, and that is something that can happen actually, and I've had moments of this too, where it's like, it starts with an inspiration, you go on the path, and then there's almost like having to keep up the thing that's been created, which can, in some cases, veer you off the path. And so I wonder if it was anything like that. So that's just a thought there. But I actually want to bring in Sophia, because Sophia, your iconic essence is temple body, right? And so the idea is like, almost like, what is leading the guidance? Is it the mind and sort of the shoulds and this idea of who we think we're supposed to be? Or is the body, the soul, like who's leading? And Sophia, I'd love to hear your perspective on what do you think enables people to to be in their body, to let their soul embody when there is so much expectation, and a lot of the way life is almost against the nature of how we function, especially with women as well. But anything that you could say around this idea of how to really let our soul embody in this life, in this world, in this society?
Yeah, thank you. This is such a juicy conversation. Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that comes is safety. So, safety is so essential. I think a lot of people are disconnected from their bodies because they don't feel safe, and that could be something that they come in with, or something, from trauma that has happened in this lifetime. And so it is essential for us to do the work to go into the darkness, because that is where our power lies, where our truth lies, where our true iconic essence and connection to our soul. It's like the retrieval of the soul needs to happen in order for us to be fully embodied. And yeah, as a temple body, it's like recognizing that this body is a vessel, is a temple for our divine, iconic, signature soul essence to be embodied here now. And so it is a path, because yeah, it's not, I definitely came in with a very different programming, different everything. I mean, from my parents being fourth generation in a spiritual, organization around the world, and having my parents that were healers, and so I recognize how, yeah, I came in with these different programs, and because I have these different programs, sometimes I actually can't relate to other people. And so I am here to say that it is possible to reprogram, like, all of the women, especially because I mostly work with women, to reprogram and recognize the old stories, like Jenna said, these belief systems that are actually running us and disconnecting us from our actual soul, like to be connected to our soul's essence, which is iconic essence, to be connected to that and be guided from that space, and to align our life every moment, how we are living our lives in as ritual, in devotion, like with our soul. And that becomes this beautiful collaboration, co-creation. I like to say temple body art. So temple body was the iconic essence, and arts is really recognizing that we are an artist, like we are co-creating in every moment. And Laura, you've been such a beautiful inspiration and mentor for me in that, of just like, yes, like, and temple body arts is like really recognizing these three channels. I see them as integrating the spiritual through the temple, the sensual, like embodiment through the body, and then the creative channel. And that when we can really bridge all of these in how we are showing up in our bodies, co-creating with life in every moment, then yeah, we're really taking action from our iconic essence.
Absolutely. And there's moments where it's like, it can feel like speed too. Like I think of, there's the speed of light. I think that, we're sourced in the dark. Well, how would I phrase that? It's like, there's this soil that or this kind of realm we come from that's like the dark, but it's like the essence in a way is light. And it's like when we line up with what we are, it's like the speed of light. There's a momentum that gets put in motion where it's like things line up, opportunities come. And then there's times in our life where it can feel like, wow, like why is this not happening, or this is going so slow or whatever. To me, those are those kind of moments of realigning, readjusting, kind of getting the things synced up so that, you're sourced from the right source. You're synced up with what your light is wanting to, be and express. And then it's like, there's a momentum to it. And yeah, so I love how you describe the things with the temple body arts. Something else I think is so beautiful, speaking with people who really develop themselves, we get a medicine, and we get a way of almost interpreting life, processing life, how to exist, how it's like you end up getting your own map. And then that map that you get through your journey becomes something that becomes an offering in the world where other people are like, wow, there's other ways to do this.
Mm.
You know, and you had shared how your belief systems, like you came into a spiritual community, so you didn't necessarily get the same imprint that other people who were like immersed in a certain type of typical culture would have gotten. But then that gives you another angle of your own medicine that you get to bring. So like all of it, I just see the perfection in all these pieces. So I want to weave into this conversation here. I'd love to weave in Sierra. And, you know, you said in the beginning, you wanted to be the light, not kind of like, you know, be in the light necessarily. And of course, those two can coexist, right? But just the order of it, I heard, which was so powerful. How would you describe, like, kind of where does the energy, where is the source of our ability to have our iconic essence in action? Like, what is sourcing that? Where does that come from your perspective?
It's a great question. And my iconic essence, Divine Radiance, and it was all about sourcing our inner light. So it's an aligned question. I feel like there's this energy of like chasing the dream, right? We're pursuing our goals. There's something we're going after. And that's fine and good, but I think there's a space of like, well, are we emanating from, are we being the thing that we most want? Versus, oh, once I get there, I'm going to be able to be that or have that. There's this balance between, yes, pursue and go toward, but also know what it is that you want. So you're not chasing something down the road. For me, I've gone down this road and then I'm like, wait, this isn't quite what I thought it was. And now I'm not really where I want to be. And now I've done all this, you know, slogging to get here. And I'm actually more depleted versus going, okay, so what is the lifestyle, the life, the creation, the beingness, the expression that most serves me? And then how do I be that now? How do I create that now? How do I allow that to feed into the desires, the business visions, the brand, you know, all the things, the money creation, whatever it is. And so I think it's giving us ourselves enough time to really know ourselves. I had a real big realization along my journey at one point that I was doing a lot of the things in my life because I was caught in the drama triangle. Like I was rescuing, thinking there was a perpetrator so I could be, you know, the savior of the people that are victims. And that was driving me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if there is no victims? There's no one to save. And how can I just be in my creation without this idea that I have to go be a savior to something? And that, for a while, talk about a dark night of the soul. I was like, well, then what do I do if I don't have that driving force? I'm like, kind of like, what's the point? But after I sat with it and did some medicine work and really looked at that energetic, I call it like the dirty fuel energetic. It was driving me, but driving me from a place that wasn't clean in my purpose and my purity. I was like, oh, right. It came back to, well, who do I be? And so now to me, it's really about modeling. I think modeling is such an important part of offering transformation to others or creating businesses. Is if people can come into my experience or the things I'm creating and really feel the truth of what I'm transmitting, that to me, I think is way more important than any idea of any way that I would send out any other messaging. And that's where I actually decided to let go of that piece of my business at the time, because I was almost congruent, but not fully congruent. I really wasn't living it, walking it, being it to the level that I knew was possible. And that had to shift for me. So yeah, hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. All right. I'd love to weave in Cora, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you know, because you use your voice so much. You've got such an exquisite singing voice. And I remember the first time I heard it in the studio. It was on like a soul art day, and we were making art, and then all of a sudden you're like singing and playing the guitar, and like everyone just went into this trance, and just the ability to bring through a full transmission with your voice is so profound and so beautiful. And so I'm curious for you, what do you feel enables that purity of the transmission, right? Because it's like, there's our soul, there's our connection with it. And then we want to put it in action. We want to live it. We want to express it. We want to be it. And sometimes there's a little static in the way, so it doesn't get through. But when it's just like a pure transmission, it is just like divine energy just showering, like a waterfall of love, right? What do you feel enables that ability for that pure transmission, for the iconic essence to get through, for the soul to get through and be expressed?
Can you hear me, by the way? Is the audio okay? Is the audio
Yeah,
okay?
there's a little something, but let's go with it. Yeah.
Closer?
Interesting on what we're talking about, but just do what you can do.
All right. Well, listen to my music. But for those of you who can't,
It's a little bit.
can you hear me?
Yes. Kind of. I just made a big speech about this transmission. It's classic, right? But you know what? It's almost like when you were sitting back slightly, it seemed like that was a good spot. And, you know, I'll just kind of add in my little note here of like how I'm looking at it. Like, this is what it's like. For any of us, right? If we have something to get through, there is often an obstacle. It doesn't mean always. And when it gets through, it's like the masterpiece. It is gold. It is genius. It's like you just want to live in that moment forever because it's just like being in heaven on earth. But a lot of times being on the planet is like we're kind of navigating some obstacles to get our soul through. And, you know, so sometimes there's a reconfiguration. If there needs to be a crackle in what you're saying as you're talking, we'll just work that. It's cool. But I think it's just, you know, I think it's just fair to kind of bring that in. Like, that's what life is like, that we're all trying to bring our soul through on some level, whether consciously or not. That is, we're here for our soul is here to express and experience and embody. And we have our journey to go through to align things. And sometimes the challenges and the obstacles actually become part of the equation of us figuring out how we're going to get our unique thing through. So go with whatever the audio is. If there's drops in it, we'll fill in the gaps. We'll hear our own codes of what it means. So I'll just go with it. I see the word love. We're going to go with that. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like loyalty to authenticity, like that's poetry, songwriting, authentic my emotions as authentically as possible. With music, just like what is the expression of the feeling? And then to medicines, to different psychedelic medicines, really access spiritual states and play, and then be able to reconnect with that feeling. And so, yeah, ultimately, I feel like
loyalty to authenticity.
Medicine.
Loyalty to authenticity. That's what I'm gonna highlight, that bit that I heard there. Thanks, Cora. You know what? Maybe it's just an invitation for everyone to go listen to your music, right? Check out the link below. Cora's music is epic, epic. All right. So what I want to do is I want to do like a rapid fire, okay? Like a rapid fire of, I'm going to bring up a topic and I want to hear just kind of like what comes to you on that topic. So part of the journey, iconic essence in action, I think money is a big thing there's a few topics. Okay, money, structures, like how do you do something, and then our own personal or collective, whatever barriers we have to deal with to get through, right? So there's things that whenever someone is like, wow, I want to really, live my dream, I want to be myself, probably at some point they're going to be facing something around money. They're going to face some obstacles going to come up. They're going to be faced with some belief system, and they're probably going to have to exercise some major courage and spiritual muscle to take a stand for who they are and what they're here to be, and have that loyalty to the authenticity. So I would love to hear in a rapid fire way what you think was your own personal most important moment of putting your iconic essence in action? Now, whether that was having a dark night of the soul, or whether it was you made a decision and you showed up anyways to something that was difficult, or you had a big break, an opportunity came. What was that, your most important moment of your iconic essence in action? And I can start it off. I'll do it for myself. I think for me, because I was someone who was super shy, it was very hard to do things like publicly, to be visible. I think the biggest moment for me putting my iconic essence in action was loving what I was doing more than the opinion of someone else. That internal configuration alignment was the most important thing, I think, for me to put my iconic essence in action. I mean, like, I'm going to love me first before the opinion of someone else. So that's the thing that comes to mind in this moment. Koryanka, for you, what was your most important moment for putting your iconic essence in action?
That's a big question. There are many moments I can think of, but I want to share one. It was my second Dark Night of the Soul, not like the first one. That was the most painful and deep and lasted years, but the second one lasted only 3 months. But it was also something that shook me to the core. And I went through something. I faced one of my biggest fears, and that was being criticized, being told, you are this and that. And what really hurt me the most is that I knew that I wasn't that. And I was like, oh, how can this person that I thought loves me and knows me so much can say that about me? Like, I was really in little pieces inside of me. And so that Dark Night of the Soul was 3 months of through depression. I was crying every day on the corners. My husband was really concerned. And what I really love about that experience is that the divine essence, which is what you call the iconic essence, came through. I processed it. I let the feelings run through me. I let the pain and the heaviness go to Mother Earth. I processed the whole thing. And there was a point that I reached at the end of the 3 months when I was in total trust and faith. And I was praying to the spirit guides, to the divine, that I wanted them to guide me, that I was ready to be shown where to go from there with that and who to be after that experience. And they came through. They truly responded to my prayers. So things started to line up. People came into my life, opportunities, new teachers, new experiences. And that really was nourishing for the birthing of me as the initiator of the Medicine Women. And I am feeling that I am going now through a second layer of initiation in life to step up even higher in that role. So it's really all coming from this place of trusting, having faith, and allowing the divine, through my spirit guides, through life itself, show me the way and go with it with faith. So this is something that I want to share with people, that those dark nights of the souls, those moments in time when we feel lost and we feel maybe depleted without the energy that is required to create anything from that place, actually those are important moments that will take us further in our path. And so it all works out to be for our Sacred Life mission, to be something that we can do really powerfully.
Thank you. Yeah, it is so painful when someone's opinion does matter, or what they think of us does matter, and they say something, it's like, whoa, they didn't see the essence there. And it sounds like in that you alchemized into a deeper connection with spirit and claimed your own authority, your own spiritual authority within that. It's a painful journey, but it sounds very empowering. So thank you for sharing that. Jenna, I would love to hear for you, what is your most important or significant, meaningful moments of your iconic essence in action?
I think when I transitioned from being a wellness coach, a health and wellness coach, to being a pleasurable weight loss coach, it was this owning that the key to weight loss, which is also a metaphor for our vitality, our wellness, the unburdening of whatever is making us feel heavy, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, that the gateway to that is pleasure, taking the shame away from pleasure, taking the guilt away, also becoming more, having discernment that pleasure is something, true pleasure makes us feel good in the moment and afterwards, as opposed to counterfeit pleasure, which may give us a strong hit in the moment, but then we have a hangover and we feel worse afterwards.
Mm.
So when I really embraced that, and Pleasurable Weight Loss came out as my brand and went on to be a book that I published, everyone was like, pleasurable weight loss? That's like saying pleasurable pain. Like, what are you talking about? How is that even possible? And it opened a conversation. It's a nice little shock to the system. Like, how? And that has led me then to study pleasure more, study sexuality more, intimacy, and these topics, and then to revealing my iconic essence of erotic innocence. And I did want to say, you see this bumper sticker, I've seen it around, like, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Which always gives me a little giggle. But I think once you find your iconic essence, you can embrace that bumper sticker with your iconic essence. So what would erotic innocence do now? What would it do here, there, in all these different circumstances of life? And we can listen for that voice, that truth, and that authentic individual guidance. And it really helps because it is always evolving. I do think that's probably
Mhm.
my permanent iconic essence for my existence, but the format will always change, and I will keep listening into it.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely gives like a navigational tool. When we can connect with that part of ourselves, we can figure out how to show up to different things that happen in our life. And I also love that the title of your book, Pleasurable Weight Loss, because just even in hearing those words, it reorganizes something of like what you think something would be actually could be different. So just even the words itself, I think, is kind of revolutionary.
And
All
my
right, thank
iconic essence today, my erotic innocence, is screaming at me to plant some plants. I have some bulbs, to go plant those bulbs, and to get to the nursery, buy some herbs and vegetables, and get my hands in the dirt. And all week it's been like, okay, today, garden day, garden day. So today is going to be the day.
Today's the day, garden day. Awesome. This is a certain kind of garden too. Here it's like kind of we're massaging the soil, getting things ready for whatever seeds that you're going to be planting in your life. All right, Sierra, I'd love to hear for you. What is your most significant, important moment of your iconic essence in action?
I think it was straight out of the gate when my photo came through when we did that back in 10 years ago, if you remember. I was struggling with my body image, and I had gained some weight, and I did a very, scantily clothed photo session with you all. And when my photo was revealed, a couple months later, I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm not gonna share this with the world. I was in complete denial of my divine radiance. I was like, this is not gonna happen. And it took me calling you and getting on the phone, and you kind of working through what really, like, deepening me into my divine essence and or divine radiance. And I don't know what you did, but you had me tap into it in a very powerful way. It was really a pivotal moment for me. And then I understood really what I wanted to be expressing, and then how I needed to be with my reaction to the photo, which I did not like. I was so upset by it because it was showing me the parts of myself that I was still in judgment of. And once we went through that little process, and dropped into really what's truly there for me, which one of my desires in my divine radiance essence was to be able to own all of me, no matter what weight, shape, size, age. Like, it was like all of me, and to allow that to be expressed in the world. And that's exactly what my photo represented. So after you took me through that little process of dropping in, and I remember closing my eyes and then opening my eyes and looking at the photo, it was like alchemy, pure alchemy. It would change everything in how I viewed that. And then I was able to use that as a very powerful story of my journey as a woman and claiming more of myself and being okay with the fluctuations of my body at various times in my life. And it's a good thing to remember now because I'm on the precipice, as I mentioned, of my 50th year. And, aging's the next, initiation that I'm in. So yeah, it's been very powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I remember
Mhm.
that. And it was so beautiful to witness that alchemy. And what I saw in that was your light just like literally coming through more and more and more. Like it's just, yeah, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Christina, for you, what's your most important or significant moment of your iconic essence in action?
There's so many different ways I could answer this, but I'm going to choose the one that I think might serve everyone listening the most is when I was a total hippie healer that crossed over into the coaching world. And when I first started to learn about business, everyone was telling me, okay, you need to pick one thing and leave everything else out. And I was like, but I have all these gifts. How do they come together? I know there's a way. And if I left even one of them out, I felt like it was almost amputating a limb. And so I took a stand for myself in that moment of like, that doesn't feel right. I am not going to do that. I'm going to figure something else out. And I was a broken record for probably a good 6 months. This was like 15 years ago. Like, I've got all these gifts. I don't know how they come together. And I'm sure so many people listening can relate to that. And so eventually there were lots of pieces to the puzzle and how this unfolded. But someone said to me, why don't you write down all of your individual gifts and plant them and put them in the earth? And that was just such a gorgeous lesson as we're talking about planting and the wisdom of nature and gardening. And so I did. I lived in LA at the time. And so I didn't have a backyard, but I went out and bought a plant at Trader Joe's and I wrote down all my little gifts on little pieces of tissue paper and planted them in the plant and sort of did a ceremony and handed it over to the divine. And lo and behold, through a course of many different actions over that time, something started to like weave together because I had this background as a fashion photographer, but then I'd been this hippie healer and I was like, how does this all come together? And then eventually it did. And that's when I started as the heart shot photographer, as a transformational photographer and blending those gifts together. And so that is just something I'm very passionate about. All of us have all these life experiences, all these work experiences. And I'm a big believer that we want all of them woven together into, that's what our iconic essence is the sum totality. And I know that this is how you teach as well, Laura, and this is what we've always connected with. And you have your own beautiful way that you guide people through this. And so I think that to me was a turning point because I didn't have to step forward in something that didn't feel right to my soul. It was a bit of soul retrieval of like all of my gifts. And then once I had that in alignment, and it's a deep process. Like it's not a linear thing. Like you really have to integrate them all inside of you in a kind of very shamanic way. But when that clicked in, I was like, okay, this is my lane and I will follow this. And so I think that really started everything as I rose very quickly afterwards. It was a different era, certainly 15 years ago, but it was a wild ride. So that's what I would say kicked it off for me.
Yeah, amazing. And interesting, I'll just kind of reflect back this idea that you planted these seeds in the dark, right? Like meaning like they go into the dark and then that out of that dark, that's the, it's like the death, right? It's in this dark space, but then it comes out of that. So yeah, just very interesting. Amazing. Love that. So cool. Thank you. All right, Cora, let's give it a go again. I want to hear for you, if we can hear it. What's your most meaningful or significant moment of your iconic essence in action? Oh, Cora, okay, let's see if it works.
Okay, can you hear me? Hear me?
Yes. Let's give it a go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an important moment. That's a lot of pressure. I feel
Okay.
like I'll speak to record Gloria, and I described it as taking my bra off, like instead of trying to, and in the light, if you will, the dark and authenticity just felt good to me. And it isn't my most like perfect album, and it's so deeply. And since then, recently, lyric videos of those that like just keep being authentic, true to me, and it's going to create the most amazing results, satisfaction. So yeah, an out called Reverence and the way, but it is about just surrendering to authenticity path. And honestly, it just feels making music or creating things in the root of who we are and what we really feel, support, and bless all of you guys in that.
Mm-hmm. So you know what? I had the same response when I'm listening to one of your albums. I find I like lean in to kind of like bathe in it, and in here I was like leaning in to listen. So you got the lean in. I heard the lean in. I also heard the things again around just authenticity. You know, every time that we give ourselves permission to kind of have the courage to just be what we are in whatever way, you know, it's a meaningful moment. All right. Thank you, Cora. Thank you. All right. Sophia, I would love to hear for you. What is your most meaningful or significant moment of your iconic essence in action?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, after discovering Temple Body and the Temple Body Priestess within me and birthing Temple Body Arts, International Temple Body Arts Day, inspired by Soul Art, you know, International Day. And then it was like, I was in this really interesting moment of, you know, similar to Jenna in a sense, but have my own story with my womb, where I wanted to be a mother, and I had tried for 5 years to become a mother and to conceive with my husband. And at the same time, I knew that I was here for something really big. I knew that I was here and that I was going to birth something of my own and create a big impact, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And I had all of these different gifts, and I had built this beautiful retreat center that's behind me here. And yeah, I was in this really like difficult moment. And it was actually, you know, at the time when we connected, Laura, and I was diving deep into my iconic essence, and that I finally got pregnant. And in that, you know, in that pregnancy, I finally received the clarity of like, I needed to clear my entire schedule from all the other things I was doing. And I had to birth my school now. It was like, stop fucking around, excuse my French. It is time. And so I thought that I would be 6 months pregnant, like birthing my Temple Body Arts Mystery School, doing my training. And, you know, I realized that I had been playing small in a lot of ways. Like I was afraid to birth my own thing, that people wouldn't come, that, you know, I didn't fully trust myself. And then I went through a major dark night of the soul where I almost lost my life, because I actually miscarried and lost so much blood. I had to receive a blood transfusion. And in that process, you know, first receiving that message, and then in the deep healing of my womb and coming, you know, receiving these yoni egg practices and going deeper into my own feminine practices to heal. And in that space, receiving the clear message from my Temple Body Priestess that was really like, yeah, it is time. You have to birth your school now. And I was able to like take all of this creative power and just channel it into birthing the mystery school. And so I really, it's like there's no separation. Like that time of birth and death, I mean, it was such a deep moment. Yeah. And really like, you know, and the work that I do with women, like I recognize like we have such a hard time just trusting ourselves and trusting our vision and trusting that, yeah, our own beliefs, like Christina said, of like, no, this is actually like, I don't have to surrender all of this. Like, this is me fully. And like, we are all here to bring through our own essence and gifts in our own unique way. And yeah, and I'm so grateful for you, Laura, and for this work through the arts. You know, I just feel like I love the way that you are able to help so many tap into our essence and create art and see that life is art and there's no separation. So I just, yeah, that was definitely like the biggest moment of my life of like coming out and fully birthing. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing this. And I remember watching that time in your life as well, and how you did channel all of that birth creation energy into what was coming through you. Like you did go through a birth. You had miscarried in a certain way, and then you had a super birth in another way, right? Like it was a profound thing to watch, that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to, I was like taking lots of notes as all of you were talking, because there were just so many, it's like reminders in a way, but also illuminations, like, yeah, like exactly, like that's exactly what I needed to hear. And that just put it into just, it relaxed this, because it's like, hearing the stories. And so I invite for everyone who's watching and all of us who are here as well, just receive what is the relevant gem for you. Like take it in like a nutrient. Something may have sparked in what you said, what you heard, what you thought about because of what somebody said. Take that in as the clue for the next step in your journey. And, it's like the journey isn't a straight line. But when we do trust it, and in retrospect, it's easy to look and see how just perfect it was. Right? It's like, oh, of course, I had this dark night of the soul. Those 3 months I'm crying. And then, and at the time, all you want probably is for it to be over. But then you look back, you're like, no, I needed that time. I needed that experience, because it gave me an understanding. It gave me maybe the vulnerability to be open. Maybe it gave me the determination to say, no, I'm going to do it my own way. Or maybe it made me let go of someone else's opinion to claim my own. So noticing what is relevant for you in this idea of putting your own iconic essence in action, and it never ends, right? As long as we're here, like we're going to keep evolving. So many of us are speaking about things like 10 years ago, this and that. It's like we've been on this journey, and there's so much ahead as well. Like we're at the very beginning of the next chapter. So I just want to thank all of you for sharing. I received so much from all of you. It's such a treat. And I'm going to be processing some of the things that I heard that came up for me that I think are the clue, the next step for me. So I thank you. Such a joy to connect with you. I'm sending you all so much love. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. All right. So now this is our second day in the Global Vision Quest. So tomorrow is our third day of the 3 days. So it's the final day. And we will be doing our guided visualization to illuminate your thriving path. So this is where kind of the pieces start coming together to see what is your unique path. So whether that's a structure or the next step or kind of like the direction, that's the visualization we'll be doing tomorrow. So join us then. And I thank you